Hi there. My name is David Charles Rowan. I'm a teacher of astrology, and I just wanted to tell you about this introduction course that I run and this amazing classroom software. I began teaching astrology and esoteric studies in 1991, so this is my 25th year of teaching. And when I kind of logged into Facebook for the first time around 2008 and started to get to know people, it became obvious that you can make friends all around the world, but it's very difficult for people to kind of get to Wiltshire to kind of come around my house and learn this fine and ancient art. So I searched around and I found this software that you're looking at the moment. And my introduction course is slightly different to the professional training. In the introduction course, the only person who's on video is me. So but typically what would happen is a person logs in. All the students, we have a Facebook page that's especially for the students of each class, so we can use it as a kind of a notice board, and it's very private as well, so even if we post personal things, no one will ever know. But we can discuss issues, debate topics, and I can literally use it as a notice board, so let people know, what time of class is going to happen and things like this, put up additional information. The introduction course I run has no homework whatsoever at all. There's some reading material that people have sent, but essentially I like the idea that the course tells you everything you need to know, rather than here's a little bit of information and a massive book list. Now go ahead and do that on your own. I like to think of people being able to log in. So just to walk you around this environment, first of all, I guess you can see the video here. In the center, there's a picture to help you kind of orientate where you are. You are here, obviously. You're revolving around this huge lump of nuclear explosions. This big hydrogen ball. And in the left-hand column, right at the bottom, underneath the name, you can see my name there, there is like a chat box, and participants and students who are participating can communicate in there. So that's how we can all chat and talk. So it's very interactive. People ask questions while I'm talking, just as if there were students in the room. Now, this particular software has some features that I particularly like. One is that it has a recording facility. So at the end of each class, everybody receives an email with the recording link for that particular class. So that means that people can watch as often as they wish. And it also means that if somebody misses something, if their connection drops down or someone's ill, things happen. If someone can't attend a class, then they can watch the video and, as often as you wish as well. There have been people that have done the whole introduction course purely by video viewing. So they don't actually participate in the room, but watch by video. In the first third of the course, we look at astrology as a kind of a philosophy, really. So what is this topic about? How old is this topic? What's the history of it? And also, is it possible to do broader things with it? Can you look at, the history through the lens of astrology? Astrology must, because it's suggesting that we can use this kind of language of symbols to describe human experience, then it must touch all different dynamics of human experience. So we look at psychology, we look at neuroscience, we look at esoteric philosophy, we look at mythology, as well as astrology as well. And it's all kind of brought together. And this introduction course is literally from the bottom up. So there might be people who have looked at astrology already and think, sounds a bit basic for me. And there might be people who haven't looked at astrology because it seems complicated with mathematics and think, sounds a bit daunting. There is no mathematics involved. We use computers these days to calculate birth charts. And while there are purists who say, well, it's very good to learn how to calculate a chart by hand, it is. However, in terms of being able to read a chart and learn about your life and understand the dynamics of the lives of the people around you, it's not essential to do the math. So I like to do it the other way around. I like to show people how to read a chart first and then maybe do the maths afterwards. Because when I first calculated a birth chart in 1982 and I looked at it and I thought, what does it mean? And the fact that I couldn't read it was so frustrating. For example, this is my birth chart, and you'll see what I mean in a moment. It can look rather complicated and daunting. What does all that mean? So what we do in this introduction course is explain the anatomy of a birth chart. So the different components that are contained within it and what each of these symbols can mean and suggest. Uh, so, on the first day, for example, we just look at patterns. You notice that some of my planets are all kind of down here at the bottom. There are some there at the top. That might mean something. And you look at this next person. This is Jimi Hendrix. And all of his planets are kind of all squashed up here. And there's all this empty space down the bottom. Does that mean something? This is the Dalai Lama's birth chart. And his seem to be all spread around. So everybody has a unique birth chart. No one's born in the same time and space. Even twins have different birth charts. Even if they're born 10 minutes apart. I have a professional student, and we can actually tell the difference between his birth chart and his twin's birth chart, who was born first. So it can be very particular as well. Now, astrology, in a sense, is the art of employing symbols to describe qualities of subjective experience. Before we start looking at our own, like I said, we have to look at these other topics. And some of those may involve looking at esoteric things. For example, we have to discuss fate and free will. If we are fated, then astrology is pointless. If our lives are decreed by some sadistic god who's been watching soap operas and we're just merely puppets for their entertainment, then, there's no point in looking at astrology. If you can't change it, why bother looking? Then again, on the other hand, if we are agents of complete free will, if we have existential free will and there's absolutely nothing impeding that, then astrology is a straitjacket, kind of limiting our options. I don't particularly go with the idea of fate or free will. I think there's something sort of in the middle of those two things. Predisposition, I think, is more of a tenable thing. So we'll discuss these ideas. We'll also discuss the ideas of life and death as well, of the spirituality of our experience. For example, we'll look at the Egyptian version of what happens when we leave life. And this is called the weighing of the souls. And so we'll have a bit of a Egyptian philosophy right at the very beginning to just get us an idea of alternative perspectives. Because essentially, when we look at astrology, we're looking at models of reality. Human beings have employed symbols to be able to describe phenomena. And that's kind of how our brain works as well. Our brain doesn't touch the outside world directly. It's fed information through the nervous system. So sight, sounds, taste, smells, etc. come in to the nervous system. We also have internal processes as well. Temperatures, hungers, needs, etc. And these also tell the brain certain bits of information. And the brain then has to undertake the phenomena of the making of meaning and then decide for itself what it's going to do about the phenomena that it encounters. So any model that is going to be able to describe human experience and human nature accurately, by definition, must be as complex as human nature is. But I teach it in a very step-by-step, easy way. In fact, there was one lady wrote to me and said that she'd been reading astrology books for 35 years. I was astonished. I didn't realize she'd been looking at it that long. And she wrote, I've been reading astrology books for 35 years, and then I did this introduction course with David Charles Rowan, and I found that every question that I had, because the books left much to be answered, every question I had was answered in the introduction course. And I was so touched by that. That was a very flattering thing to say, but what surprised me was, how long she'd been looking at this subject for, and the fact that she, drew so much from it. So as we get into the middle section of the course, of this 18-week course, we begin to look at the symbols themselves. For example, some people might be familiar with the symbols in astrology, but this is the symbol for the planet Mercury. And I like a Stonehenge background. So we look at, why is it this shape? There's a round circle, okay? There's like a cross beneath it, like a little man, I guess. And this funny kind of pair of horns on his head pointing up to the sky. Why is Mercury that shape? Why isn't it a different shape? Is there something significant specifically about this shaping? So by exploring the shapes of the planets, you actually find that there are meanings built within that symbolism. And so once you understand what the meanings are, like learning a language, I guess, when you look at the symbols in the future, instead of having to draw on your memory, you already understand what the symbols mean. So then a birth chart becomes a picture of things rather than being a set of stuff that one has to remember. We will look at models of reality. We'll discuss the idea of, the flat Earth. Is it true that people thought the Earth was flat? Perhaps it isn't. This is a picture from a 13th century Bible. And you can see here that it's a picture of God making the world. And he's using a compass. So in this picture, 13th century, God is making the world, and the world is round. This predates Columbus by 200 years. Now, the artist that drew this didn't just quickly sketch it, right? Even if he could quickly sketch it, it would have been one page in amongst many other pages in a Bible. And books weren't printed then. This is before the printing press. This was done by hand. And that meant that it was going to be overseen. The artisan wouldn't have been the person who owned the book. So every page would have been discussed. Every page would have been reviewed and then approved of. So that meant that whoever was overseeing the production of this Bible already had the notion themselves that God knows the world is round. So why did people say the world was flat? What's all that about? And so, we will look at not just the solar system like we have in the center of the screen here. We'll look at different ways of looking at our own solar system. There's a lot missing from this. Space junk for a start. The Earth should have lots of kind of glittering rings around it with all the kind of stuff we've been chucking up there. So a schoolboy will tell you that this is an erroneous picture because it includes Pluto, although there's a probe reaching Pluto this year in 2015. So Pluto may kind of find itself back into the picture again. So how can human beings look at the solar system and have different versions of the solar system? And it's all about this idea of the making of meaning, how we construct the world subjectively. So a birth chart isn't a chart of you anyway. It's a calculation of the broader environment that surrounds you. And we use the map of that broad environment to have a symbolic map of the landscape of a person's psyche. That landscape shows potentials. That landscape shows things that may come to pass, and we may not do them. It shows that things may come to pass, and we may live them out. And people find that life is easier if they can navigate it, if the map of life can be articulated and expressed. We'll look at the history of these things as well. I mentioned that already. So we'll meet William Herschel, the first man to discover a planet that couldn't be seen with the naked eye. And this is the telescope that he used to find it with. So there's a kind of an interactive element with this in terms of media. You notice there was a piece of music playing at the beginning of the class, and there's also a piece of music that plays out. There'll be a piece of music that plays out when we finish here. So in the last third of the class, we then look at our own particular personal birth charts. I'll describe a section of the chart in meaning, and then we'll look at ours, one after the other after the other. A class has up to 9 students in it, and each class is supposed to be about 2 hours. Sometimes they run over. On average, a class is between 2 to 2.5 hours long. Occasionally, it will be 3 hours. Occasionally, it will be just a couple of minutes under 2 hours. But there's a kind of a step of each class that has a particular set of work that it's going to cover. And so it builds incrementally, so that by the time we've got to the very last one, and we're talking about some kind of more sophisticated ideas, everybody has done the journey and they understand exactly where we are. So in order to understand some of these interpretations, we have to look at some dynamics of psychology as well. So there'll be a class where we look at things like fight and flight defense mechanisms, the difference between suppression and repression, And so that when we start to look at the astrological chart that also describes those areas of life, we have an idea of, the mechanisms that are at play. A lot of people find it very illuminating. Some people also send me their details of their family members. Anyone who does the class, I'm also a chart calculation service. So some people have the charts of their children, on their desk or wherever they are in front of them. And as I'm describing the meanings of certain planetary positions, they go, oh yeah, look, Henriette's got that. Oh, Jeff's got Mars there. What is he saying about that? And so you can kind of learn about yourself a bit through this and also learn about other people too. There are lots of handouts. I think there are something like 5 sets of handouts that are sent out. One of them, the one on science, has 50 pages. So it's quite a substantial set of stuff that you get. The classes are done over 18 weeks. They're weekly. And people can pay, the class up front or pay, per session. But all the details of that are on the website. So in the link under the YouTube thing, you'll find that there's a direct link to the information page on my website, and it has all of the information there, and it will answer every question you have. My website is www.davidrowan.co.uk, and if you want to write to me, write to astrology@davidrowan.co.uk. I'll just repeat that for you. That's astrology@davidrowan.co.uk. And I'd be delighted to answer any questions you have and hopefully clarify things for you and, yes, take you on this amazing adventure. It's quite an eye-opening journey. It can be life-changing as well. You can learn much about yourself. You can learn about the dynamics of your unconscious and your emotions and find out a little bit about how come we do the things we do. I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you very much for your time in listening to this little discussion on my online astrology course. Thank you so much. Take care. Bye.